Welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you joining me today because we're looking at an absolutely epic historical tale. We are talking about a story of fierce defiance, brilliant tactics, and heartbreaking tragedy that history almost entirely forgot. If you're someone who loves deep dives into ancient military strategy and unsung heroes, well, you are in the exact right place.
So think about this for just a second. What if history's most famous last stand happened in reverse? Most of us know the story, right? The 300 Spartans holding off that massive Persian army at a narrow mountain pass. It's totally legendary. But what if I told you that an incredibly similar battle took place, but with the roles completely flipped?
Okay, let's dive right into this. The familiar story of King Leonidas and his Spartans from 480 BC is perfectly mirrored roughly 150 years later. Only this time around, in 330 BC, the defenders are a vastly outmanned Persian force, and the unstoppable invading army, that belongs to Alexander the Great. It's just an incredible historical echo.
Section 4. The Persian Thermopylae. Reversing the script.
Section 5. Alexander's March East. The Collapse of an Empire.
Let's see how this builds. By this point, Alexander the Great had been on an absolute tear across the ancient world. The mighty Achaemenid Empire, the Persian Empire, was practically crumbling under the weight of his relentless military machine. The Persians had suffered a devastating series of defeats: Granicus in 334 BC, Issus in 333, and then that massive crushing blow at Gaugamela in 331 BC. Alexander's rapid advance seemed honestly impossible to stop. He was pushing deeper and deeper into the Persian heartland, until we reached the harsh winter of 330 BC, at a place called the Persian Gate.
The situation for the Persians at this point was utterly desperate. After that disastrous defeat at Gaugamela, the Persian king, Darius III, had to retreat. He fled east to Ecbatana to try and raise a brand new army. But, this strategic retreat left the royal road to the magnificent capital cities of Susa and Persepolis wide open, completely vulnerable. So the defense of the very heart of the empire fell to just one single commander.
And that commander was an Achaemenid prince named Ariobarzanes. He was the satrap, which is essentially a high-ranking provincial governor and military commander of Persis, the southern province that housed the capital. Appointed to this role in 335 BC, he was now charged with the literally impossible task of stopping the greatest conquering army the world had ever seen.
Section 9. The Mountain Ambush. A deadly trap in the Zagros.
Instead of meeting Alexander on an open field where the Macedonian phalanxes would just completely crush him, Ariobarzanes engineered some brilliant tactical advantages using the terrain. First off, the severe winter weather made movement incredibly difficult. Second, he chose the Persian Gates, which is a mountain pass so narrow that Alexander's massive numerical superiority meant absolutely nothing. Third, Ariobarzanes took the high ground, building a wall across the pass and hiding his troops. And finally, total surprise, Alexander, riding high and overconfident from his easy victories, actually neglected to send scouts ahead. I mean, no way, right? But he marched right into the ambush.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer David and Goliath nature of the whole shebang. Alexander brought a picked force of between 14,000 and 17,000 elite fighters into that pass. Against them, modern historical estimates suggest Ariobarzanes had somewhere between just 700 and 2,000 men. The Persians were massively outnumbered. But when the Macedonians entered the pass, the Persians unleashed absolute hell, raining down boulders and arrows from the cliffs above.
30 days. Seriously, I want that number to really sink in. This tiny, hopelessly outmatched Persian force managed to completely halt Alexander the Great, a commander who had literally just conquered half the known world, for an entire month. It was a humiliating, bloody stalemate for the Macedonian army. In fact, some historians argue this specific engagement cost Alexander his greatest losses of the entire Persian campaign.
Section 13. Betrayal and Last Stand. The Fall of the Gate.
But, sheer bravery can only hold out for so long. Much like the Greek forces at Thermopylae were betrayed by a local who showed the Persians a goat path around the mountains, the exact reverse happened here. Sources vary on the details. Some say it was a captured tribal chief, others say a local shepherd, or maybe even a Greek prisoner of war, but someone revealed a secret, treacherous mountain bypass to Alexander. Under the cover of night, Alexander led his troops around the pass, completely outflanking Ariobarzanes and attacking the Persian camp from the rear.
Completely surrounded and with absolutely no hope of victory, the Persian forces didn't surrender. And this brings us to one of the most incredible details of this whole story. Utab, whose name translates to unique or shining, was Ariobarzanes' sister and a fierce female military commander. She stood shoulder to shoulder with her brother. Together, this brother-sister duo led their remaining troops in a ferocious, desperate melee, absolutely refusing to retreat or yield to the invaders.
The brutality of this final stand is vividly captured by the Roman historian Quintus Curtius Rufus. Let me read this to you. The Persians fought a memorable fight. Unarmed as they were, they seized the armed men in their embrace and, dragging them down to the ground, stabbed most of them with their own weapons. It is such a visceral, chilling image, isn't it? It perfectly highlights the absolute desperation, the fierce loyalty, and the sheer willpower of these Persian troops fighting for their homeland.
In the chaos, Ariobarzanes actually managed to break out with a few men and race toward the capital of Persepolis to try and mount a city defense. But in a truly tragic twist of fate, the garrison commander at Persepolis, seeing the writing on the wall and realizing Alexander was definitely going to win the war, had already switched allegiances. He locked the gates of the city, denied entry to the very capital he was trying to save. Ariobarzanes turned his horse around, rode straight back to the battle, and died fighting the advancing Macedonian army.
Section 18. The Fall of Persepolis, the End of the Achaemenids.
With the defenders wiped out, the immediate aftermath was completely devastating. First, Alexander marched in and captured the vast treasury of Persepolis, making him instantly the wealthiest man in the world. Second, he installed a new Hellenistic satrap, Phraseortes, completely replacing the old guard. And third, and definitely most devastatingly, a few months later, the magnificent palaces of Persepolis were burned to the ground. Historical sources still debate this to this day, actually. Was it a calculated act of revenge for the Persian burning of Athens a century earlier, or was it just an impulsive, disastrous decision made during a drunken feast? Either way, the heart of the empire was left in ashes.
Section 20. A Forgotten Legacy. Who writes history?
Now, what's really interesting about this is why we know so much about some battles and almost nothing about others. Directly comparing these two events reveals a fascinating mirror image. You have an invader, a defender, a betrayer. It is the exact same tactical blueprint, but the legacy? The Spartan stand at Thermopylae has statues, massive Hollywood movies, and a cemented place in global pop culture. But the Persian Gate? Almost complete historical obscurity. While the Spartans are globally immortalized as the ultimate symbols of resistance against all odds, the incredible sacrifice of Ariobarzanes and Eutab is rarely, if ever, taught in Western history classes. This disparity perfectly illustrates how history is preserved, popularized, and often shaped by the victors or by the cultures that survive to write the definitive texts. Greek and Roman historians did record this event, but over millennia, the Western cultural focus naturally gravitated toward Greek heroes rather than Persian ones.
So the crucial point is this. Who truly gets to write history? Which stories get preserved in stone, and which are left to fade into the mountain winds? There are so many incredible narratives buried just beneath the surface of the history we think we know. If this explainer sparked your curiosity, make sure you subscribe to Untold Persia to uncover more forgotten heroes, hidden epics, and the fascinating stories that history almost left behind. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep exploring.